Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to my hobby blog. I'm very excited today because I finally read Stephen King's book one of Dark Tower, which is The Gunslinger. So this was a book that I've had on my list for a very long time. This actually marks the final fantasy series that I've wanted to tackle for most of my life, because back when I first started reading outside of A Song of Ice and Fire back in like 2013 or so, I basically compiled a mental list of many different series. I had Malazan, Book the New Sun, Realm of the Elderlings. I had The Dark Tower. I've had Walls of Light and Shadow on there as well. So I've had like these 5 huge major series within the fantasy genre that I've been wanting to read for a very long time. And this is the final series that I am sort of starting, because I've basically have finished Malazan. I have a lot of the other books to read. The Path to Ascendancy series, the Witness trilogy, the Path to Carcanus or whatever, the Carcanus trilogy, I believe it's called. And I also started Walls of Light and Shadow earlier this year, and I am taking a break from it because it didn't stick with me. I love the prose, I think it's fantastic, but I wanted to start this series because everyone recommended to read Salem's Lot and Insomnia first, and now that I read that back in October, I was like, I should read this series now. And so I started it. And man, what a book. It's good. I enjoyed it. I think my gut reaction is that it's an 8 out of 10, because I feel like it's a really good prologue to the series. Because it seems like not much happened. It's a lot more character building for the main character of the gunslinger named Roland, who makes an appearance in Insomnia. So that was sort of my first introduction to him, was Insomnia. But in this book, he obviously is the main character, so we get a lot more information about him. And I really love the sort of metaphysics behind this series, because we have different levels of the world that all of our characters go through. Because eventually in the book, he meets with this boy who is sort of just wandering the desert. And it ends up that he is from our world, and he lived in New York City. And he was somehow, when you die on Earth, you are sort of sent to other planes of existences or other worlds within Stephen King's work. So that was a really cool sort of thing that happened. That I think is my favorite part of this book, was figuring out all of that. Because there's a lot of discussions about it in Insomnia, but I didn't really understand what any of that meant. And it was upon further research that I found out that people recommend reading Insomnia after book 2 or 3. And I was like, well, crap. I was like, well, I'm sort of stuck there because I've already read Insomnia. But I really enjoyed the sort of odyssey that our character takes, where he's trying to hunt down the Man in Black, because the fates are twisted together, and we get a lot of really fun scenes of them two talking to each other. And Roland is like, I'm going to defeat you, and the Man in Black is like, yeah, but it's gonna take you a while. You have a lot of trials you have to go through, because I talked with an oracle and she said that you have to go through these few trials first before you can even defeat me. And it really reminds me of Walls of Light and Shadow in that regard, because in that series we have the character of Lysae and Erathon, the 2 half-brothers, who are sort of butting their heads against each other. One is on the side of the light, the other is on the side of the dark, and that's why it's a war of light and shadow, and that's why it's called that. But with this series, I'm really looking forward to learning more about the sort of cosmic overlap that the series has with all the other Stephen King works, because I've read about 7 books of his now. I should do a tier list at some point, or like a ranking video maybe, just talking about Stephen King, because he just has so many fantastic and different works within his sort of bibliography. But this book in particular, like, there's really cool monsters in it that I really enjoyed. Although they are a little easily defeated because our main character is a gunslinger. He has guns. And he's sort of in this, like, post-apocalyptic version of Earth that is mostly desert. And he sort of fights these mutant creatures. It reminds me a lot of Fallout, which is really cool. I love Fallout 3. That's what I mostly played in my life. But I also really love the TV show. And so if you're a fan of any of those works, Worlds of Light and Shadow, you'll enjoy Stephen King, you enjoy Fallout, like, this is definitely the book for you. This is a really fun book. But my main issue is that it's only like 300 pages. It's very much a prologue. And I really hope that book 2 picks up the pace. Because I feel like even though it's, it looks beefy, there's really not that many words within each page. And I'll just show you here. But I hope this shows up well. Yeah, it's really sort of big margins. The text is really large. So it took me only 2 days to read this. And I enjoyed it. It's definitely a page turner, but there were times where I was like, man, I wish there was more happening. And another thing that this book reminded me of was one of my favorite cult films, directed by Alejandro Jodorowsky, called El Topo, which is about a sort of cowboy character traveling with his young son through the desert. And they come in contact with a lot of different sort of weird experiences, very psychedelic. It's from 1971, 1972, I think. It's the movie that he did right before The Holy Mountain. So if you know of that movie, that's probably the pinnacle of cult films, in my opinion. It's very weird. It's just amazing. I love that movie. But, like, this book sort of feels like a love letter to all of that. And there's a really interesting introduction in this book, in the version that I have, that he wrote after finishing the final book of the series, The Dark Tower, Book 7, I believe, where he talks about how he really wanted to have, like, his own fantasy series, but he didn't know what he wanted to do. But he knew he wanted it to be epic, many pages, 1,000 pages or whatever. And so he was going back and forth on it, and finally he sort of went and saw Good, Bad, and the Ugly in the theaters back when that came out in the 70s. And he was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a fantasy series that's more Wild West than swords and magic and all that. We do have magic in the series, but it's not like Lord of the Rings or Malazan or anything like that. So I really enjoyed this. Again, I think my rating is going to be an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very readable. I don't think you really need to read any other Stephen King books to appreciate this one, because I think this one was just really great on its own. So I think this would be a good place to start with Stephen King if this is your first book by him and you're more of a fantasy reader. Because I know a few friends of mine who do not like horror novels, but they do like fantasy, and they want to read Stephen King, but he hasn't really written any fantasy outside of The Dark Tower. So, yeah, that's sort of my non-spoiler review. I enjoyed it. I hope I enjoy book 2 more, though, because I really want to sort of have this final series that I read in my mental TBR to just really knock me out of the park. Like, I would just really like that. So, without further ado, thank you all so much for watching, and please have a great rest of the day.